All right, Trails Collective world, thank you so much for tuning in either this evening as we're going live here on May 10th or post episode if you're finding it after the fact. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like to drop a comment into the comment feed or ask a question for any of us on the Trails Collective episode this evening, drop it into the Trails Collective's Facebook page or YouTube stream. I won't see it until after the fact, rather, in my own personal feed. But it is great to have you on and tuning in. Excited for another pretty packed episode this evening or this round, bringing you voices from a number of trail events across not just the eastern seaboard here, but pulling one in from Arizona as well. A lot of cool events ran this past weekend, and it's our hope to highlight not necessarily just always the bigger ones that everybody's familiar with, but also to give a voice and a bit of a platform to maybe some of those that you haven't heard about. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for supporting the Trails Collective. You can, if not already, like the stations. If you're not already a Patreon supporter, every little bit helps, and we try to turn it back around into supporting regional athletes and also events and companies. Maybe we'll get there. So thanks for all of your support. So we are going to start this episode. I am going to bring in at least a virtual friend here, Britta. We will meet at some point. Britta was gracious enough to, I think, weigh in with at least a couple of clips over the past year or two for some of the TC Live or the weekly rundown episodes. So Britta, it's good to see you again and in person somewhat.
Good to see you too.
Totally. All right. And so Britta's on tonight to give us a bit of insight or pitch something that she has in the works. And so Britta, take it. Let us know what you're working on.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Ian.
For sure.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time running races, but for the past 5 years or so, I've also been organizing one. And just wanted to come on and spread the word about it in case folks haven't heard about it. It's called the Goshen Gallop. It's a shorter race than maybe some of you are into, but it's a 5 and 10 kilometer race in Goshen, Vermont. And all the proceeds from the race go towards the Blueberry Hill Outdoor Center and towards maintaining the same trails that you run on during the race. It's a pretty hilly, moderately technical race, super fun trails, super awesome views. This will be its 44th year. So my
Which
dad,
is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think one of the oldest races in the East Coast. So my dad started it 44 years ago, and now I've taken.
I don't know if I knew that it was a family thing, and I think that even though I think you plugged it maybe in the clip a year or so ago, I think I missed that it was like the 44th year, and I need to add that to the I have historic roots of Northeast Trail races as a feature article on the Trails Collective site. And I don't think I missed that one, but yeah, that would be literally probably just behind. I don't know what was. I don't remember how.
Older, I forget what it is.
I think the oldest one that I have on there is maybe JFK.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But all right, sorry, interrupted you though. But
yeah, no, that's
pretty awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, historic race. The women's course record has been broken for 3 years in a row, and I would love to see that continue. And the men's course record hasn't been broken for 12 years. So would love to see that go down. And this is not public knowledge yet. Well, now it will be, but we're going to offer a little cash prize for anyone who beats those records. So would love to see some of you speedsters out there. And just in general, anyone who wants to come out and push themselves on a hard course. There's pizza after from a wood-fired oven, and swimming and bonfires, and just generally a really, really good time. And if you stay the night and want to do a long run with me the day after, that's great too.
That's bonus too for the weekend. What's the date of the race again?
It's July 16th. So it is Vermont 100 weekend. So,
but who goes to Vermont 100 anymore? I
exactly
where it's at is like Goshen Gallop. I mean, come on.
Exactly. Yeah, a little bit shorter if that's what you're into. And yeah, I have a code for you guys. If anyone wants $10 off, you just put in Trails Collective, all caps, when you register. And we also, if the registration is prohibitive for anyone, we're like very happy to comp entries if it's a barrier. So just reach out if you have questions about that. And yeah,
work on the proactive code.
Huh?
What nice work on the proactive code.
Oh yeah.
Correct. And then you can track whether anybody out there is actually listening. And Matrix Lasagna or Matt, I know you're in the back end at the moment, but in terms of a speedster, I forget what you've got going Lake July, but I'd be one to maybe take a crack at that record. But there's definitely some. What's the distance again? You said? Sorry, you said it in the beginning.
5 and 10K. 5 and
10K.
The 10K is the one where the records are the sturdy records. The 5K tends to not be as popular, but.
And how many people roughly have done it historically or past few years? Or I guess outside of COVID?
Between 100 and 200 usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
At Blueberry Hill, what's Blueberry Hill all about? What's it supporting?
So it's Blueberry Hill Outdoor Center. It's right next to the Blueberry Hill Inn, which some of you might have heard of. But it's a 4-season outdoor center. We do backcountry skiing in the winter and running and biking and hiking in the summer. It's right in the middle of the Moose Moon National Recreation Area, which is in the Green Mountain National Forest. So we maintain about 40 kilometers of trails, mostly double track running, skiing trails. But the area is just, you can run, 100 miles without going on the same trail twice, combining all the networks in the area. So it's a pretty special zone, and would love to see folks out there exploring it. There's also it's the same site as the Moosaloo Ultra, which some of you may have done, and is also happening this year. I don't organize that, but I'll be racing it, and it's super fun. So I'll plug that one too.
And will you run your own races? Have you taken a crack at your own record?
The first year I organized it, I tried to run as well, and it was very stressful. So I do not run. I stress out about the timing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think putting on races always, scorch me more than actually running them. And I feel like there's too many potential fires to be tending to or putting out on the back end that I don't know how anybody both races an event that they're also putting on. I don't get how that works.
No, there's always something. During COVID, we did waves. We did 4 races throughout one day. So that was maybe the most ultra marathon like race organizing experience. But yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming back on, queuing us into Goshen Gallop. I think that sometimes that toward the end of July calendar gets a bit sparse. Some of the areas you just can't get the permits to put races on, let alone all long ones, I guess, in the east, where you can just get buried by the heat and humidity. So that is great. So I hope some people check it out, and it would be cool to see if that carrot makes that record go down. Yeah.
And if not, just come run the trails in the area. Blueberry Hill Outdoor Center, tons of awesome trails to get a long hilly run in if you're in the area.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, Britta, yeah, totally. Thank you so much. And I will connect with you more later.
Yeah. See you soon.
All right. See ya. So thank you so much to Britta. And if you are an event director out there, you have something going on, feel free to reach out as well. We might be able to plug you in or weave you in just like that, and at least reach a few more people. I know as RDs, it's always a challenge on getting to people. So for sure, reach out if you've got something. All right. Next one, I am going to weave in Sullivan Summer. I've not I met you in person. I don't think we met on Breakneck Weekend, but I appreciate you being in the mix, and I appreciate you giving up some of your time here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
For sure. So hopefully your drains are shower drains are unclogged at this point from the mud that you brought home from the weekend.
Well, thankfully I stayed in a hotel over the weekend and left a huge tip to the housekeeping staff at the Sheraton Four Points in Northeast Philadelphia after I completely mucked up the bathtub with my clothing.
Big shout out to the crew then at the Sheraton, 4 points. Thank you.
And I don't think I was the only one
that.
there either. So huge shout out to the cleaning crew at the Sheraton 4 Points in Northeast Philadelphia.
Maybe that's the last time they become a partner hotel for the Dirty German.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah, right on. Well, it is great to have you. Thanks for. So I've been scrambling today. I have another event that I'm putting on this weekend, and right before here, I was doing some grocery shopping and picking up the aid station staples and got a little bit behind. But I did come up with a just on the fly, and hopefully they're kind of fun and not just obnoxious. A few questions here for you to just put out, and then we can just kind of go where the conversation goes.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. So we are. Let's see. Let's go with, okay. So you recently moved from what, Seattle to New York City area?
Exactly. Yep. Moved from Seattle to Manhattan about 6 months ago.
All right. So let's go with, we're going to go for a multiple choice question here to bridge that topic. So you moved from Seattle to New York City because A, New York City is where the Amazon action is these days. B, Tiger Mountain isn't even as big as Central Park. And in Central Park, you get to see more people hooking up in the woods as you run by. C, it gets tiring running on such beautiful non-technical trails around Seattle and Washington that you thought you'd move east and try crushing your legs for a change. Or D, all of the above.
For sure, all of the above.
That's
for
great.
Sure, all of the above. For sure. Yeah.
I'm glad that I got to nail those then on the fly. That would have been awkward if you wanted to just pick one.
Nice work.
Yeah. So how's it been? So you've been getting out there, you've done a couple of events, moving east, and you're kind of immersing yourselves in the surroundings. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going well. So it's really been recently that I've gotten out, truly out, right? Through the winter. I'm training for Western States after 6 years of trying. This year was the magic year. The downside of that is the lottery occurred about 3 weeks after I moved to Midtown Manhattan from Seattle and all the beautiful non-technical trail on the West Coast. And so Central Park is a little tough for a training ground for Western States. Yep. So now as we're getting into the nicer weather, I'm trying to get out a little bit more. And that's what sent me to the Dirty German down in Philly over the weekend for a 50 miler. I've got 3 consecutive weeks of 50 milers headed into Western States training weekend, Memorial Day.
Oh, wow. So what's the next 2 weekends on the consecutive?
So this coming weekend is Mohonk Preserve, which is in upstate New York. That's carriage trails, so I think it's relatively flat. And then I'm headed out to San Francisco the following weekend for the San Francisco 50 miler.
Oh, right on. That's awesome. Yes, and Mohonk. Have you run up Mohonk Preserve yet, or have you been up there? Cool.
No. Again, I went all in on Manhattan, so I don't have a car. So it's a 3 days in a production for me to get to get an hour outside of the city to run a trail run.
And that's, I mean, to that point, I guess it's at least breakneck. We get some of the people each year that will come up just on the train. You got to leave pretty wicked late or like the last train out or whatever. But it's cool that you can get so far out and at least close to these trail networks just by high speed rail. But to your point, kind of that last little bit, once you get there, can be a bit of a stretch. And so when you're really trying to put in some long miles and some cool trail networks, yeah, I can see that being a logistical consideration.
It is for sure. It's been an adjustment for sure, the logistics.
Yeah. All right. So you chose Uber Endurance Events, another multiple choice here. A, because you knew there was a slim chance that you'd be able to earn one of these gems for the win, in case you got one of those or didn't get those, which are pretty hot. B, in this age of increasing wokeness, you are curious how a company still gets away with a race name like Dirty German. C, you might score an opportunity to play the Glockenspiel post-race. And to be honest, I don't even know what the Glockenspiel is. In the moment, I was trying to remember what the accordion instrument was, and just Glockenspiel came to mind. So just roll with it here if that's technically not even an instrument.
All right.
And then D, none of the above, but why really? What took you to Uber Endurance?
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't have a choice about Lederhosen.
That
felt like an obvious.
It felt like
an obvious option.
Yeah.
No. So chance to do a 50 miler, just to get the miles in, and Philly's about an hour and a half drive for New York City, so kind of easy to get to. Was excited about the trail. Looked like a beautiful trail. Of course, all that was before the weather forecast came through, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But but yeah, just a chance to get out on some trails. And again, it's hard unless I leave the city. You know, Central Park is 10K around, and so I can do that many times, which I've done. Or I can run in a straight line over the George Washington Bridge and northward into New Jersey. And again, a straight line for, you know, approximately 18 to 20 miles and then turn around and come back again. Or I can get out of town.
Yep. And it is amazing how, I already referenced it, but I remember over the years before I really started exploring more of the parks to put on races out around New York City area, I know New York City would always come up as like the top trail towns, like the Trail Runner magazines. And I was always just baffled. I was like, what are you talking about?
I don't know where these trails are. I have no idea. Like I have.
So not right to your point, not necessarily. Well, they're the parks that can link, but in terms of the overall, like within a maybe 45-minute drive or whatever of New York City, it's absolutely astounding and incredible just how many trails there are. So I still balk a little bit at the New York City proper, but if we're talking like the larger metro area, it's pretty wild.
Absolutely.
All right. So, and Uber and Ellie weighed in here as well. I don't know if you guys got to connect down at Dirty German. But a great job, and asked if you'd defrosted yet and thawed out. I know Ellie was pretty frozen out there.
Yeah, we so we didn't connect live. We knew each other was there, and we connected on social media afterward and decided essentially. So of course she's much faster than I am, but we essentially had the same race, which was 2 laps, frozen to the core. And I know for myself as I was coming in, so the race is 3 laps for the 50 miler. And as I was coming in towards the end of the second lap, I decided, you know, I came to do a training run. At this point, I am doing exactly 2 things, which is courting hypothermia and courting injury. And it's just not, I've done what I came here to do, and 50K is enough for today.
Yeah.
And I sort of tapped out at that point. And I know, you know, Ellie also had ran a really strong, really smart 50K, but I think also was feeling the same way of like, this is just not what I'm here for today.
For you to both be focused on your Western states opportunity, it would be, that would be tough to get injured by Dirty German ahead. So, well played, but hopefully the next 2 are a bit better in weather. And that's pretty awesome that you're doing back-to-back 50s into the training weekend. So that's a pretty stellar build-up. All right. So speaking of conditions, the third question here. So select the best possible choice for footwear this past weekend. Would it have been, let's say, the Speedland here with really nice little maybe 5mm lugs and gusseted rubber? Would it have been the let's go one of the best running shoes created ever here, the Hoka Evo Speed, the Jaws, the Evo Jaws, which have pretty stellar lugs, really flexible, if only it didn't fall apart in 50 miles and turn your feet blue when they got wet. Would it be the Saucony Endorphin Trail if you could get a pair, only you couldn't get a pair because the midsole had a tendency to disintegrate within 50 miles on some people? Or would it have been, it wouldn't have even mattered at all. It would have been best suited to mountaineering crampons.
Yes, some sort of thigh-high rubber latex something. I've done a lot of trail races. I have never seen anything like this before. Like I can honestly say that. It rained on and off for about 30 hours before the race and then for the entire race. And the conditions there, the course was, you were either up to your knees in water, in mud, in standing water, or up to your ankles in that like brownie batter mud. You know what I'm talking about? That was it. Like there was not an inch of the course that wasn't covered in one of those 2 things. And in fact, when I came in on the second lap, there's like very, very tiny portion of the course that is on pavement. Like you go under there's beautiful creek, and you go under the underpass next to the creek, you know, on the little sidewalk or what have you. When I came back through the second time, and I remember exactly what mile it was, maybe 22 or 23, something like that. The creek had flooded such that we're wading almost up to our thighs to the aid station in this like rushing water, where you're doing one of those where you're thinking like, I actually don't think this is safe. But what are we going to do? It was in the mud. When I got back and I took my shoes off and I pulled the insole out of my shoe, there was mud caked on the underside of my insole.
That's good.
Of my shoes. People had mud in their mouth. People had like, it was just like nothing I've ever experienced.
Must have been a pretty great sense of kind of camaraderie out there. I mean, everybody was experiencing the same just ridiculous kind of conditions and just trying to get through it all. And imagine that was at least a bonding agent out there.
It absolutely was. And there's the race draws a lot of first timers. So it's a 25K, 50K, 50 mile. And because it's, 1 lap, 2 lap, 3 laps, it's a very first timer friendly course. Again, the conditions are beautiful. It's not particularly technical at all. And so the number of first time 50 milers out there who all had amazing attitudes, but I was like, oh my God, like this is not it today. Like this is not the thing. You should do another one. But yeah, I think everybody was in fantastic spirits, because at that point, how could you not be? Like you're either going to laugh or cry. And I think most people were laughing.
Cool. And does it leave you checking the calendar for another Uber endurance events? Was it as much as you could feel the community in a day like that? Was it good?
Absolutely. I can't say enough about the aid station volunteers were fantastic. Everybody there was just fantastic. I would absolutely do another event in a heartbeat.
Cool. Right on. Well, Sullivan, great job. I'm looking forward to hearing about your next couple weekends and hopefully connecting with you on the ground at Western States as well, and maybe talking further at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Ian.
Yeah, thanks for sharing some of your time, and I'll talk to you more later.
All right. Thanks.
All right. See ya. All right. So next one, we are going to weave in. We are going to turn our attention toward a classic event, one of the I would say classics of the Northeast with Seven Sisters. This is one that I was hoping to run for the first time going into COVID, I think when it was canceled. So that didn't happen, but it's definitely on the bucket list. For those who have not had Seven Sisters on the radar just yet, definitely one to check out. And we have two winners with us for this episode. We've got Matrix Lasagna or Matt Lipsey. And then Carmen, we've not connected on the trails, but you've got some Northeast roots. Just doing my initial Facebook. Actually, I was looking for a video to plug in the title card, a photo rather. And great job in not having much on the internet that I could find aside from a couple college pictures or some Vermont high school running pictures. So kudos to you, for not letting me find easily pictures. That's outstanding.
Thanks. It's nice to meet you. It's good to be here.
Right on. All right. So let's see. So Matrix or Matt, you have run a few Seven Sisters. Carmen, was this your first Seven Sisters experience? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
And were you aware of the race for some time and just looking to run it for a while, or did you just got cued into it this year and jumped in right away?
So I graduated from college in 2020, and I had signed up that year. One of my friends, I was a Nordic skier in college, and one of my friends from my ski team ran it the year prior and just was raving about it and was like, this race is so hard, but it was amazing. So I signed up that year, and then it hasn't happened. And so I still had my registration. So I was like, okay, I want to try this out. But I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Well, you're also a Nordic skier, though. So for that background, that's probably still one of probably my favorite event to watch in the Olympics to a certain extent. Is just to see the sheer full body emotion, mental exhaustion of Nordic skiers collapsing at the end. So hopefully, whereas Matrix Lasagna is getting old man and wiser now and not hammering himself at the finish, and he can mention that. For you, hopefully you still have the Nordic ski breed where you just crush that final descent and you just collapse in Nordic style.
Oh, I wish. The final descent was so hard for me. I think that was the toughest point in the race, because you want to be able to just run as fast as you can, but it is so steep. So I was at that point hobbling, but the last like little part that's flat at the end, I crushed that for sure.
That a girl. All right, and so Matt, since you run it, how many times have you run it now?
This is the Peter Maximow reminded me. He's like, hey, this is the 6th year you've won it, even though you've only run it 4 times. Or like, so I mean, I've won it 4 times, but because they didn't have it 2 years because of COVID, I guess Peter was saying, he's like, so I guess you're the reigning champion for 6 years, even though you only ran it 4 times. And I'm like, wow, this is like the only time in history this is ever going to happen, unless we have another one of these things. And then
yeah, you should be sure to put that on your running resume when you're applying for elite sponsorship, that you should just start adding that, the number of events that you get the default champion status for, like even if you didn't run them. You should just put those down anyway.
I don't think so.
All right. So since you've run it several times, though, for those who aren't cued into Seven Sisters, give us the rundown of Seven Sisters, whatever that might look like.
Okay. So first of all, what you got to know is they advertise it as 12 miles, but on everybody's watch, it only shows up as like 10.5. So like you would think in a time and age where you've got this great technology on your wrist and every year it gets better, every year it still only shows up as 10.5. So either they're wrong or it's so steep in some, there's these, you go across the Seven Sisters and then you come back. So you go across these head walls, which are, I mean, you're cliff jumping. When I'm trying to channel my inner Ben nephew and just leap off of these things. So when you're leaping off those things, apparently it's so steep that even though technology gets better every year, it must still not register as the full 12. So I don't know where they got the 12. I don't know if it's 10.5. Maybe it's part of the mystery. It's just part of the mystery of the Seven Sisters. And then Josh Ferentz one time said 7 sisters and they're all bitches. And I don't know about that, but I grew up with 8 sisters. And I mean, I never got to use the bathroom, but other than that, it was okay.
So is that a fair comparison then? I mean, do you get to use the bathroom more on the Seven
Sisters? Not during the race. No, you don't
not
want to use it. No, not during the race. So that was, I mean, that was standard. If I have, 8 sisters, then I wouldn't use the bathroom during the race anyways. I was just, used to that, I guess. And then Carmen, did you have a watch on it?
Yeah, I would say mine was 11, a little over 11, but still under 12. I wasn't jumping as far, but.
And elevation, what's cumulative elevation gain?
Maybe like 4.
4?
Yeah.
Over that 11-ish miles.
The best, I think one of the best, I mean, there's all these great stories about, like Paul Lowe when he set the record, like a 1:42.06. I mean, it's just like unbelievable. But there's, I feel like any good race has these great stories about it over the years. And I hear new ones every year. So like I stay with my buddy Drew and Michaela and my favorite house plant, Fig Newton. He's a fig. He has like one leaf on him, but he's my favorite house plant. So I stay with them. And when I go up there, they've always got some new story. So Drew tells me this story about years ago, and I don't know who this guy is. I can't remember his name, but there's, I don't know, Carmen, if you remember there's a section of basalt rock with the hexagonal columns. When you're almost to the mountain house, you run across the summit house deck. Before that, when you're kind of hitting, there's like that big giant rock that you basically, it's like a wall that you have to climb up, but there's all those little steps on it.
Yeah.
The ridge is like post-volcanic, and it's also been around forever, like prehistoric times. If you go to the Amherst Free Museum of dinosaurs and old mammals and stuff like that, they've got pictures on all the walls that show where the Holyoke Range was during those times, and there's like dinosaur footprints in the mud not far from there and all this stuff. But anyways, that basalt column, some guy on the way, you go out and back, so you come out, you come back through traffic, there was people all over that rock whenever this, and he was probably like in his 40s or something, and he was like, he didn't know what to do, and instead of waiting or going around, he jumped over top of 3 people. Like, this is an 8-foot high boulder, and then the landing is just shark teeth. It's just rocks that don't move. It's not baby heads. It's just spikes, like an Iron Maiden on the ground. And he jumped over top of 3 people. And I was just like, wow, these stories get better every year.
So but that is so doable, and that in that race. Like I can totally picture that after having done it.
Which is, at one level, you're like, all right, yeah, whatever. But then if you're really thinking about that fast a time at 142 in that technical training, you're really going that fast. I mean, you kind of have to really imagine for both of you, even running as hard as you were, quite a bit, just kind of throwing caution to the wind and just trying to kind of find your flow out there. And did you feel like you can do that where you can still flow on that course and bob and weave, or is it just a grind for 11 miles or both? Carmen, how was your first experience?
So I'm a really strong climber, so I do well on the uphills, and I just hadn't run technical downhills in so long. So that was hard for me. But the uphills, I knew that was where I was going to make the most time. So I just tried to find my strengths there, and then get through the really steep sections. I honestly haven't been able to walk for a couple of days. I would say I was that unprepared, but it did make me like so excited for more, and really motivated me to want to get better at all aspects of that race. There's like something for everyone, I would say, to do really well at.
And so does that leave you with a general stoke for more trail races, or have you done a lot of trail races, but this is kind of a new specific stoke for that race specifically?
I haven't done a lot of trail races. I was like very injured for a while, and recently trails have been really great for me, and are really good for my body. So I'm really excited to get back into running through trails, and kind of find my competitive edge again through trail racing, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. And then for you, Matt, in terms of your stoke, your fitness is pretty outstanding at the moment. Do you feel like, I mean, I guess, how's that feel to be so fast at the moment, yet have that record still be like 3 minutes out there? I mean, that just seems like a Herculean, like, so you're getting your best time each time you go out, but that record just seems untouchable.
Well, here's the thing. What I've been told is it's a little longer than the original course. It's like my buddy Drew, he says it's about a minute longer. So they added some to the start and the finish, and then the turnaround is a little different, but it changes every year. Like Amy said there was a swampy area that was rerouted for some rattlesnakes. Like sometimes you don't go across the deck of the mountain house, so those years are faster. And then this year we went like through some rocks in the mountain house, and sometimes you can just go through the gravel that goes to the left of that. So it's hard to know, I think on the final descent, I probably could have shaved off another 40 seconds or so, but I was racing myself at that point. It was bringing it down to the finish, and I was like, why botch my whole season, take a chance of falling? And I never look at my watch, so I didn't even know where I was at anyways. And I was like, why don't I just bring it home? Like, just no reason to fall. And then plus my Massachusetts, do I want to, if I need to go to the hospital, because that final descent is, I mean, you could go to the hospital. And I was like, do I really want to deal with maybe going to the hospital, So I just was like, why botch my whole season? It's 40 seconds. It's not worth it. Just take it down. But we should really, if you want to talk about people going downhill fast, we should talk about Liam Cregan, because he was in, you go out and back and you see where everybody's at in this course. So you know where your competition's at. I saw Liam in like 10th place, and he's come and run 148, I think is his fastest time, which is pretty sick. Anybody who goes under 150 in the men's field is pretty outstanding. And so he's got local knowledge. He was in 10th place at the mountain house, and he's coming back. So he's, he stepped away for a while, and he's on his way back. So his fitness isn't all quite there yet, but he's running in 10th place at the turnaround. And somehow he came in 3rd place because he used that last major descent to just, and I looked at his time. He got his crown time. I think he ran a full minute faster than I did on that section that day. And he got the crown. So that's pretty baller.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And then how about the larger picture of the event? Because it's been around a while. It's this classic. There's probably a pretty good vibe to the event outside of the race proper.
30 years of, wait, hold on. Where's my camera?
There it is.
30 years of blood, sweat, and cheers. And you get the sweet mug this year. So that's pretty cool.
Was that everybody get a finisher's mug, or was that the,
yeah, everybody got one.
Nice.
Skeeter drank it before I did.
Well done, Skeeter. Carmen, how'd you, in terms of the vibe, your first time through?
It was It was so special, honestly. Like people, there was just such a great community out there. I was running with a guy for the latter half of the race, and on the steep descent, he was a lot faster at the downhills, and so we kind of like worked together on the up and down hills. And I rolled my ankle on the last descent, and I was like, oh shit, or something. And he turned around, he just completely stopped, turned around and was like, are you okay? And just to have that like kindness from another racer was so special. And you would think with, you know, people crossing paths the entire time when people are running one way and other people are running the other, that there would be some like, I don't know, that you could get really hurt or yeah, exactly. And people were just really cheering you on when you were headed back, and then you would cheer them on. So that was amazing. Yeah, so I think that's what's also so exciting to me now about trail running is it's this really, really cool community.
Well, awesome. Well, that's a pretty outstanding race out of the gate. So it'll be fun to see what else you find out there and finding your flow. So nice work.
Carmen, what did you think of the drum circle at the top of Hitchcock?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we should talk about that. So
every year they're there. Every year.
Oh, really?
Those guys are
okay.
there. Every year.
Okay. So there's the one of, I don't even think it's the last climb. You think it's the last climb, and there are a couple more after
they
that.
They tell you it's the last climb. There's a sign there that says, this is it. And then you're like, you look past the sign and you're like, no, because I can see another one.
I think, yeah, one of the signs says like, this is the 8th sister. And then there's another one right after it. So you're like, how many
sisters are there? Step sister.
But there's this drum circle. At
They're all dressed like Star Wars characters because it's like around May the 4th, you know.
Nice.
It was amazing.
Ewoks and Stormtrooper 67053.
It was unreal.
Was it tempting to just kind of step off the course and just spend the rest of the day there, hanging out with the May the 4th drum circle be with you?
I think it powered you up over. Like, I don't know about you, Carmen, but I was just, I was like stepping to the beat. It was like, they're legit. Like, I don't know what instruments they're playing, but it was like, you could feel it. And they're there every year. Every year they're there. So
well,
it was
awesome. We'll see in the one of the next segments here with the Cocodona 250 crew in terms of their delirium, maybe whether they caught some drum circles out on their course as well that actually weren't there at all. All right. Well, right on. Great job to both of you. Thanks for spending a few minutes of your time with us this evening, and it'd be good to catch up with you on one of the next rounds.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you for having me.
For sure. All right. See you guys.
Bye.
All right. So this next segment, I am going to weave in a outstanding all-around individual with Grayce Hot Pants Langheine. We're going to catch up for just a couple minutes on a pretty outstanding effort, long effort that she did just a couple weeks back. And then we are going to weave in the Cocodona 250 crew and let Grayce have at it for a bit and breaking down their experience. So Grayce, thanks for being on with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Another idiot runner in the house.
Yes.
So tell the audience about a wee little run or jaunt that you set out on just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and set it up. Whenever we talked last, I said, hey, I hate to say this, but I'm kind of going to try to do the Mason-Dixon trail and see how it goes. And I finished. I did it. And so done.
Which is awesome. And it was awesome to follow and a bold effort, right? Your longest effort to date. You haven't done a really long FKT or effort like that, have you, in the past?
No, my longest effort was the Conestoga Trail, which is supposed to be 66 miles, but I turned it into 68 because I went the wrong way so many times. So yeah, up until this point, 68 was my longest distance and jumped from 68 to 200.
Well, 200 is a natural progression of things.
Right. You know, It was fine.
And it went well. I mean, right? You didn't have any major hiccups. You kept moving through. You got some support out there, decent weather. And what was the trail and the route all about?
Yeah. So I pulled up my stats really quick. The trail itself it changes because they're constantly trying to move more of it off of the road and onto trail, because it depends on who you talk to. It's probably 60% trail, 40% road now. It's supposed to be 199 miles, 200, right around there. I clocked 202.5. And I got 24,607 feet of elevation gain. But it's interesting, you know, the first day is mostly road. Like the first 47 miles, 50 miles is mostly road, and like 1,500 feet of gain. But my second day was only 37 miles and 9,000 feet of gain. So it's really like a bunch of road and then a bunch of mountainous trail that's very rugged, and then back to the road. And so it's a big mix of every type of, it's fields and a little bit of everything. The Four Bitches, not seven, but Four Bitches is a section of it. And yeah, I had a really smooth ride. I also wasn't pressuring myself for time. I did go for the fastest known time. There was a previous time for me to beat, but I wasn't. Yeah, I just wanted to finish, so I wasn't trying to get that into my head too much and really push myself. So, no stomach issues, no chafing, no blisters on my feet. My feet were pretty. They were puffy, but. Other than that, I really didn't have any major issues out there. And, but you know, really took my sweet ass time. So that helped.
Way to just enjoy it out there too. And maybe on this, in a minute here, when we move into the Cocodona, you can implant your wisdom on Cole Crosby, who's been known to have a wee bit of chafing issues here and there. So, you know, maybe you can dig in there, you know, give some tips, whether it be for chafage around the grundle, or I saw his feet were fully taped up, and get into that. So nice work getting through clean and not having any of those issues.
Yeah. I was really thankful for that. I mean, I think every single adventure is totally different and has different challenges. The cold, I wasn't expecting it to be that cold. It did work out in my favor, I think, just because the route ended up being fairly dry. All the rain hit. And actually just a couple hours after I finished, just the skies opened up and there was this huge lightning storm, and people were worried that I was in it. And thankfully I was finished by then. But I ended up, you know, on the downside, it was really cold, but on the upside, I didn't have spider webs to deal with, and I didn't have very much water at all, and I think that was part of the plus. Yeah.
And does it leave you wanting to do another one? And if so, any that you're eyeing up?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, this one was definitely me testing out the waters on the 200 distance. My strengths are certainly going very slow for a long time. I mean, my fastest mile the entire time, I think, was 11:40, something like that. I really, really took my sweet time. And I have an iron gut. I can eat whatever. And I, so far, you know, don't really have those stomach issues. So I've kind of had it in my head that I think I could do well at 200s, at the 200 distance, and at least finish it. You know, I'm certainly not fast enough to place or anything, but immediately when I finished, it was like, all right, what am I signing up for? And I don't know what yet. I think doing previous to this, I really wanted to do Tahoe or something like that, and now Tahoe is the same weekend as my anniversary, so that's tough. But I really liked being on the East Coast and having so much support over here. So I've been scoping out some East Coast 200s, or you know, I really love the format of the FKT. So maybe it's going out after another one of those. I'd like to do the Susky Super Loop, which I don't think is an official FKT yet.
I don't know that one.
But it's a really rugged, about 60-ish miles, including the hardest part of the Conestoga and the hardest part of the Mason-Dixon, connecting the two. So there's some other stuff like that I'd really like to maybe tackle, but I'm definitely interested in seeing if I can accomplish the race distance of a 200, I would have to speed it up. So
Yeah.
you know.
All right, right on. It was cool to follow you. One, it was cool to see you just tackle it and then go after it and own it and dial it in. So congrats. That's pretty awesome. Most people don't even conceive of that, let alone actually toe the line and start it, let alone finish it in solid fashion. So nice work.
Thank you.
Totally. All right, so I am going to weave in a few of the individuals from the Cocodona 250. We will have Lauren Jones that we will bring in, and Cole Crosby, and then Rhoda. I don't know if you might have to connect your mic or cam to get in. If you're not using Google Chrome, try Google Chrome. And once I see you come into the back end, I'll pull you in as well. So you can figure out that tech. I will go into the background here. I will let Grayce lead the segment, and I'll pop up some comments or questions as they come in. But Cole and Lauren, just thanks from me for both being on here, and a huge congrats on such a, I don't know, just incredible effort. So I'm looking forward to hearing about it. Yeah. All right. Grayce, hot pants, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Ian Grundle Golden. I'm switching over with my Trails Collective hat so I can be official. Thanks for joining me, Lauren and Cole. I am really excited to talk to the two of you. I just finished my own first 200 FKT, and I did it very, very slowly. You two did the Cocodona 250 very fast, and my hat's off to you. Phenomenal performances. And just for everybody watching, the Cocodona 250, this was the second year for the race, I believe, right? This was year 2? Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which has about 41,000 feet of total gain and only 34,000 feet of loss. So you're climbing overall over those 250 miles, and you have 5 days to do it in. And it's in Arizona from Black Canyon City to the Bradshaw Mountains. I have so many questions for the two of you, especially because I wanna sneak into racing 200s myself. So I'm gonna take advantage of this time and ask you all of the questions. There's a lot. There's a lot to talk about. All right, so let me start off with this. Lauren, you were the first Beast Coaster. So I was looking at the stats of everybody who finished, and everybody ahead of you is from the West Coast. So you were first East Coaster and second place female. And you have finishes throughout gnarly Georgia, and you're in Atlanta, yeah?
Right. Yep. I am.
Yeah. So you're in Atlanta. You've done GDR. You've done Cruel Jewel. Not your first time out west. You've done Leadville, Orcas Island. So I want to start with talking about training, and what do you think was helpful for you being an East Coast runner heading over to the West Coast?
The good thing is our trails here on the East Coast are so technical, rocky, rooty, and all that stuff. So I felt pretty good going in that, they're rocky out there for sure, but I'm used to it. So that was good. But I was just getting ready for the climbs. We don't have the extended 3,000 foot climbs out here. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of training for big climbs was the main thing that I focused on. And just trying to get my legs strong to stay sturdy for 250 miles.
I can't imagine it. And you've got a couple of good climbs out there. You got some good 2,000 footers, yeah?
We do, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Is it how long do you have to drive to get to trails, to big stuff?
For me, I live right in the heart of Atlanta. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending where you go. But we're right in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and so I can be right on the AT in an hour and a half, and it's not far. It's an easy day trip for a Saturday, which I do all the time.
Yeah. And I'm loving the comments that are coming in here, and you can see this. And I just want to emphasize this. So 250 miles, you finished in 3 days, 6 hours, and 36 minutes.
Mhm.
Holy blazing fast. Cole, you weren't far behind. So did the two of you see each other on the course?
I think I saw you at on the top of Schnebley Hill up there, Cole. Right?
Yeah, we connected at that point.
Yeah.
I was kind of my feet were burning at that point, so I needed to take a little bit longer. But we were sipping on ramen and just kind of hanging out, having fun.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so Cole, you finished 3 days, 12 hours, and 1 minute. Taking, was it 10th male?
10th male. I think I was like 12th overall. Yep.
Yeah. 10th male and second Beast Coaster to come through. And you're in Rhode Island, is that right?
Yep. Whopping 88 feet above sea level. So I get a lot of altitude training and tons of uphill training, you know?
Yeah. And it was interesting. Of course, I can't see everything that I did totally scope out your ultra signups. But there's always races that are not on there. But I was looking at yours, Cole, and you have some gnarly races on your resume, but they're fairly short. So you have finishes like Breakneck and Heiner and Whiteface and Maniitou's Revenge and Hellgate, which are all like it's all the Mountain Dew flavors. That's what I call them. It's the Mountain Dew flavor races. And so you had I think you had a 6:20 finish at JFK, which is insane. You're blazing fast, and you do really short, gnarly technical stuff. So first off, why sign up for Cocodona 250? You know, what made you want to do something that seems so different?
Yeah, I truly love the what I call the expedition race format.
Okay.
I think when a Cocodona race is kind of more, you really have to prepare like it's an expedition. And just the adventure of it, I think, is really appealing. The challenge of how far can you go and how fast can you go, and all the variables, the sleep, the nutrition, things are going to go wrong. Like my race, like it was a matter of just like, can I just keep going when everything is going wrong? And things like my nutrition was one of the strong points of the whole run. And really, besides my feet, I was able to keep forward progress, even if it wasn't fast. I mean, forward progress is fast in a 200. So, if you can just keep being positive and keep the momentum going, you're going to get to the finish line.
Yeah, that was forward progress is fast in a 200. I love that. Ellie, I was curious about that. I didn't see 100 on your ultra sign up. Now, ultra sign up doesn't have every race though, so you haven't done 100 yet.
I've run hundreds, but I've had some bad luck and gotten either bad injuries, and I've chosen some pretty technical races like Eastern States, which is probably it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. And running Cocodona that's my first buckle. I never have got a buckle before in any kind of race, so it's kind of wild that I ended up getting a buckle for running 250 miles in Arizona.
Yeah, that's wild. I did the same thing. I DNF'd at Eastern States, but I've done a 200-mile run. Whatever, it's fine. It's not a big deal. I can't say that I've done a race though, but I truly think that the 100, it's got to just be a completely different journey. Rhoda, thank you for
Hey. I finally got it figured out.
You're tricky. Tricksters.
Technologically challenged.
I gotta chime in and give Lauren tons of props too, because one of the things that opened my eyes about the event is that when you go to these longer distances, it's really an even playing field between men and women. And I was pulling so hard for all the women. Any woman that I got to run with and spend miles with, I'm like, kick these guys' asses. Like, just because it's just really cool. Like, just being out there and just seeing everybody, and you're spending so many miles when you're just by yourself, and then when you get to see somebody, it's this big, huge, like, uplifting moment. I know that's how it was for me when I got to see you, Lauren. I was just like, damn, she is on a tear. Like, watch out, you know?
Thank you
So
for
it's just really cool. And that's something I really enjoy. Like, I can't get that doing a 50 miler or some of the other events. 200, you're out there.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you go for so long. I went for a good solid 24 hours between seeing a runner. I think you were the first runner I saw in 24 hours, so it's just cool to see someone else out there. But thank you. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, it's wild how much support there is, and especially in these bigger distances and other challenges like FKTs, that gender just does not matter. Nobody cares. Like, nobody cares anymore. Let's just go run out in the woods and it'll be fun. Rhoda, now that you came in, I'm kind of a little bit all over the place, but I'm talking a little bit about training first. And your resume, I've been following you for a long time, like a stalker, and I'm not ashamed of that label. I'm fine with it. And so your resume includes wins at Conquer the Wall for a long time, at the 47 hour. You've been winning that for a while. I first heard about you when you won Vol State. And you were, I believe, second overall, and Vol State 2017, 18, somewhere around there, probably.
I think 18.
Yeah. So you're no stranger to this really big distance stuff. We're just talking about Cole. So Cole, he's never even done 100, but he jumped straight to this. But you're no stranger to it. So when you came into your training for Cocodona, you kind of, and your FKT as well that you did was super long. So what considerations did you have, knowing what you already know going into Cocodona and your training? What did you do differently, or what did you make sure, I have to do this, I know what's coming?
Well, in my opinion, like the longer distances, it's really more about being fit than anything else. If you can be healthy and mostly fit, you're going to be fine. I'm known for terrible training. So I did put a few like big weekends in, like the month or month and a half leading up, and I felt pretty good on them. So that gave me a little bit of confidence going in, like, okay, I'm fit enough for this. But honestly, I'll tell anyone, like, consistency over mileage. And I do the opposite. I basically do a ton of miles on the weekend and barely run during the week. But somehow it works for me. So I guess I'll just keep doing that until I probably will end up injured. But
yeah, so I should cut back on the bacon cheeseburgers and just longer.
Oh no, not at all. I consumed a lot of McDonald's last week.
Oh, good. I'm surprised they had them out there. Who's this?
Well, my crew was picking it up for me.
Oh, that's good crew. I got a lot of Wawa during my FKT, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm at the Chicago O'Hare Airport. So I tried to find a quiet spot, but apparently everybody in the whole airport decides they need to be here at this moment I'm on the show. So
That's great.
I do what I can.
I love it. It looks like somebody who's, I don't know what they're doing back there. It looks like they're getting coffee or something. All right. And Rhoda, so just to throw in your stats, you were fourth place female, coming in at 3 days, 17 hours, and 10 minutes. And the third Beast Coaster to come through, and coming out of Pennsylvania. So just to catch up your stats with everybody. I wanted to jump over to a couple of the questions that came through. At some point, I do want to ask about your grundle that Ian mentioned, Cole. He said that something was going on with your grundle. Okay, so I did want to ask this first. This one came in. I want to hear about Lauren's sleep cycles, and this is the topics that come up in the 200 plus distance, I think, are completely different. So Lauren, did you sleep? How did you sleep? And how did you determine when you wanted to sleep?
I did not sleep much. I slept probably an hour, hour and a half the whole time.
Wow.
And I didn't want to schedule it because you can just never tell when you're going to feel sleepy or feel like energized. So I was just winging it. I did a lot of just willy-nilly everything out there. I took a nap, I think at Munns Park was my first nap on the way back in, like on the out and back. I did like a 20-minute nap there. I did a couple little 5-minute trail naps, just like right there on the trail when my eyes were just super heavy. And I did one more nap at Fort Tut Hill for about, I think that one was like 30 minutes. But just enough to like energize and keep going, but not be too groggy. I don't know. I was afraid to schedule it and then just lay there awake, not able to sleep. So I think it worked. I was okay. I was mostly okay the whole time. I took some caffeine pills, which was, I don't know if it's ill advised or not, but it seemed to work. So I just figured I'd catch up on sleep on the back end this week.
Yeah, I'm getting great advice for this as I try to plan out my first 200-mile race. Just wing it for my training and just wing it for sleep. Got it.
You go right. Yeah.
Pros talking. I'm doing everything wrong, apparently. Another question came in for you, Cole. Cole, how did this compare to running 200 miles along the length of New Jersey? What was that?
I was at FKT. January 2021, I ran across New Jersey, north to south. Finished in like 44 hours. So, fast, 13 minutes a mile or whatever. So this was a lot slower, but that's to be expected.
Yeah, that sounds.
So, yeah. So I guess, to compare the two, this was a lot harder. Like my lips got sunburned to all heck. So that's why I'm talking a little bit funny, because it's just like, they're messed up. They're like leather lips. And just the whole, I feel like the whole enormity of the experience was really, it was like taking New Jersey and then just like upping it a whole nother level. And I planned everything. I had spreadsheets. I had all this stuff. We went out really fast, and that kind of things kind of went out the window. And I honestly felt kind of crappy at mile 30, and I'm like, how am I going to run another 220 miles? And I just took it checkpoint by checkpoint. And as things started to get worse, like I jabbed my feet into a lot of these sharp rocks and stuff, and I climbed really well. And I did feel the altitude too. I had a lot of issues with just like feeling just like exhausted. Like anytime I felt like I could run, I got down into like a death march kind of. And I'm like, this sucks. I'm like, I should be running right now. What is happening? And so I had a lot of things thrown my way, but I just kept the forward progress. And unfortunately, my feet, after there's a big descent down from Jerome into Cottonwood Canyon. And that descent is like crazy rocks and like beer bottles and stuff. And I messed up my feet so bad there that by the time I made it to the next aid station, we looked at my feet. We're just like, and I was like, I'm like, okay, like we need to find a medic. And after that, I was virtually getting my feet rebandaged at every single checkpoint from the whole way to the finish. So mile 120 to the finish. And I was in pretty extreme discomfort the whole time, but we made it happen. So it's all good in the end.
So what's your thought process? Like at any point, are you thinking like, I don't know if I should continue like this? Or are you like, well, I'll just bandage it up and keep going?
No, I'm finishing. Like, honestly, I paid the money and I'm like, I'm getting my money's worth. There's no way, unless I'm like, it's a life or death situation, I'm going to push through. And even though it was I had to change the way that I ran and my whole plan of attack for this race. I mean, my crew, everybody still kind of regrouped, and, I knew that I was going to run slower and place higher up than what I probably would have liked to. But I just approached it as a new challenge and just told myself like, hey, like, you can only do the best that your body's going to allow you to do. And just still, even in the pain, just enjoy the moment. Right. So I really stay focused in the moment. And kind of suffered out there beautifully, and got dehydrated, and there's some funny pictures that got blown up on the internet and all that stuff. Finished really strong. So I mean, I can't, again, it's one of those. How do you describe a whole 250-mile experience? Is really kind of so much happened in such a small amount of time, and it's just epic. That's the best way to describe the whole experience.
Yeah, I wish we had 4 more hours to go through all of the stories that all of you had and all the questions that are in my head. I just realized I should probably move things along. Sorry, Ian. I have a couple more questions though. I do want to hear, to your point, Cole, it's just this huge epic journey with so much happening. So if all of you can give me quick, and I'll start with you, Rhoda, can you give me your lowest low, just because people love hearing about that stuff, and what was your highest high, that spot where you were just on top of the world?
Probably my lowest was the out and back from, I guess it was Munns Park. I don't know, I get everything mixed up. It was like an 8 mile out, 8 mile back, I think, or something like that. That was pretty terrible. Mostly because it was actually fairly runnable, and I was just exhausted. So I ran the first little bit, and then you get on this road and you should run it, but it's mostly uphill on the way out. And by the time I got out there, I was exhausted. I was falling asleep, and I got super cold on that section. So I was freezing. I had my coat on, I had my papers, and I was still really, really cold, and also falling asleep. So it just was the never ending. That was the grumpy Rhoda section. It was a never ending section. So when I got back, I actually crawled in the RV and put a ton of blankets on. I kept all my coats on. It took me a good bit to get warmed up. So I ended up sleeping there for a couple hours, just because I was exhausted, but also just to get warmed up. But I would say the highest, just definitely the coolest thing was running through the Sedona Valley. That was just absolutely beautiful. And I knew I was going to need to sleep again. So when I came into the aid station, before you entered that, I decided to sleep there. I slept for 2 hours. So I went into the valley right at daybreak, which is definitely, I'm so glad I did that and didn't try to just push through. Because it was just absolutely beautiful. And I had 3 pacers, mainly 1 pacer. And my friend Sam paced me. She put in 120 miles during the race, which is insane. So we ran the whole way through the valley, and we both felt really good. So that was definitely probably the coolest part for me, was just running through Sedona.
Thanks for that, Rhoda. The photos were amazing.
Yeah.
Lauren, same question for you. What was your lowest low and your highest high?
I think my lowest was actually that descent down Mingus into Jerome. On paper, it was supposed to be this nice, lovely, cruisy section after a big climb, and I was really looking forward to it. And it turned out to be very not runnable and just full of rocks and just miserable. Same thing, Cole. My feet were totally torn up and blistered, and it was just painful. It was a death march down into Jerome that just went on for a long 17 miles. I was in a pretty good when I got there. Definitely my lowest, worst mood of the whole race. I took, just took some time at the aid station there, but luckily after that I didn't have a big low after that. So that was my lowest low, but then I never went close to that again. So that was good. Then my highest, I think, was probably night 2, just running through Sedona. I was in Sedona at the night, all night long, and I didn't get to see any of the scenery. I knew it was really pretty. It must be really pretty, is what I've heard. And, you're running next to all these rocks and everything, and I'm like, this must look really cool. I can't see any of it. I finally made it up that big climb up Casner Mountain, and the sun came up right as I got to the top, and then I finally got to see all the beautiful red rocks that were around Sedona with the big giant views off of there. And it was just pretty awesome to have that climb behind me, to finally get to see the views that I was missing all night long. It was just really, really cool.
Yeah. Ah, man, I can't imagine it. And same thing over to you, Cole. What about you? What do you got? Lowest low, highest high?
Yeah, so you would think the lowest low would be my feet, but really it was I started to realize that I don't hallucinate and see things. I get delirious, and so I had a grip at reality. I made a push to the 205 point whatever aid station. So I made that push like overnight from Munns Park, and I was pushing pretty hard up the Coconino Plateau and was having a hard time navigating. I didn't use any pacers the whole time, except for there's a guy that volunteered to help me at the very end. And so it was just, I knew I was going to get tired, and the altitude combined with just sleep deprivation kind of was kicking my butt. And I got to a point where I was like a mile away from the aid station. It took me about 2 hours to go 1 mile. And I sat on a log and I went into the live feed to make sure I was actually still like running this race. I wasn't watching it from my own like couch or whatever. And I saw that Joe McConaughey had just finished, and I was like, I got that boost. I'm like, oh my God, I'm still in this race. All right, I got to get going. And I kept going, and it took me forever. I mean, virtually from 10 at night to like 4 in the morning to get 18 miles. So I don't know what that time frame was, but by the time I actually made it to the aid station, I was so delirious that I didn't believe the people at the aid station were actual people. Like I was second guessing if they was real or not. And once they kind of comforted me, I ended up sleeping for 2 hours, and that definitely helped. I told them 20-minute nap. But that was like the strangest, most out of body experience. And then in terms of highs, after my dehydration bout at the second to last aid station, I made the push to Mingus, and I beasted Mingus, Eldon, the last climb. And at the very top, it just started to get dark, and I chugged a Modelo, and my wife was on the live stream. And she was like, what are you doing? You need to get down here. People are coming. And she actually called my cell phone, and I picked it up, and I'm like, okay. And I hung up, and then I told the guy I was running with, Nick, I was like, we got to go. And proceeded to just, I mean, pardon my language, but haul ass down the mountain. I mean, I don't think we've ridden anything slower than 7:10 a mile. We were going so fast, my GPS was like blipping all funny. It was like 14, 5, 6, 7. Like it was just like going nuts. And, the whole live stream stuff, like we had a guy run with us into the finish, and I made him suffer pretty bad. He came back when we hit the finish line. He was just a wet mess. He was sweating so hard. And honestly, it was the coolest finish, like to go from like the lowest of lows for the whole race, really, for me, to be able to like run 8 miles at like an insane fast pace was probably if I could ever finish a race like this, that's the way I would want to finish it. And so it was pretty cool.
Wow, man, that's awesome. And that was part of the vibe of Cocodona, was trying to take some of the pieces that we see with more European races, where there's live stream and there's camera crew and live standings, and also to go through these little towns along the way. And that was kind of how the race was built. So really cool to see that race format coming over to the US. I'll be interested to see if more races pick up on some of that. And Rhoda, I was especially looking at your ultra sign. I'm like, almost everything's in Pennsylvania. Like you do a lot in PA. You've got West Virginia, of course. But you kind of stick like right here, and you're just like the queen of PA, right? So what led you to go over to Cocodona, and then are you going to go back?
The thing that drew me to it is basically what you just said. Like I like road, I like trail, I like a little bit of everything. So the mix of all those things is mostly what drew me to that. And I also like the heat. So it was kind of a perfect, I can do without the overnights. They weren't terrible. But aside from the one night when I was freezing. But
you like the heat and then you're freezing cold.
Yeah, the heat doesn't bother me. So definitely warm races. I would not say, I'm not saying I'm going back for sure, but I definitely I loved it. I had the best time ever. No one should have as much fun running 250 miles as I had. It should probably not happen. So yeah, it was definitely probably one of the most fun races I've ever run. And just absolutely beautiful. So, but yeah, I would say the mix of everything and obviously warm temps is probably what drew me to Cocodona.
Yeah, that makes sense. Being out in those elements for days on end, that sounds amazing to me and sounds miserable to other people. Whatever. Fine. So, Lauren, are you heading back?
Oh, I don't know. I would definitely not say no. I haven't said yes yet, but I definitely want to do more 200-mile races for sure. Yeah, it was awesome. I would definitely not say no. And I love running in the desert. It's my favorite thing. It's just so different from what we have here on the East Coast. And just that atmosphere is just so cool. So yeah, definitely maybe.
Definitely maybe. And after you've done every single race in Georgia, I guess you've got to kind of branch out a little bit.
Branch out a little, yeah.
Cole, how about you? You heading back?
Not for a little while. I think I got my fill with all those rocks and such. But I'm definitely like Lauren and Rhoda. I want to do more of the longer distance expedition style events. Maybe of all states in my future. any of those other 200s out there. Definitely want to give some of those a shot. I'm bought in. The community is just so freaking cool. It's such a different crowd, but it's for me being a fairly speedy guy coming into it, it's just I felt like I had my people, and it's just so hooked. It was just such an amazing experience, and just group of people to be a part of.
Yeah. Okay. I'm only going to do one more question, Ian, I swear, and then I'm done. Really quick, because you just hit on it, Cole. It is a family, and I mean trail family. It's a family affair to pull off stuff like this. And I know all of you had just awesome people supporting you along the way. So I want to give you an opportunity just very quickly to shout out all those people. And don't forget anyone. If you forget somebody, we're going to write it down. It's coming back at you. So do those quick shout outs to all the people who supported you before, during, after. Rhoda, go.
I had my older brother Conrad, my younger brother Caleb, and his wife Melissa, and their kids, I had Caden, who's 6 years old, and Kelsey and Lathan, who are almost 5. They're twins, and then my good friend Sam. So yeah, best crew ever. It was super, super cool having the kids along.
Yeah, it was great to see them in the videos too. Lauren, how about you? Who was there for you?
I had a lot. I had a mix of people there live with me and people back home. I didn't really use a whole lot of pacers. And so my crew there was my partner, Tim. He's the best ever. And then his brother, Phil, was there. So my brother-in-law, he's getting ready to run his first 100-miler. And he actually ran the second night with me, which was really, really awesome. And then my friend Eli from here in Atlanta came, and he was so great and such a good support. And then I had my 2 super best trail buddy friends from back home. They were just at the ready on the phone anytime I needed a little boost, and they would just talk me through it. And I sat on the phone for an hour and a half at a time with each of them, just chatting through the whole thing and just going to a different place and everything. They were such a great support. Then I also had my friend John, who was one of the first trail people that I ever met. Kind of showed me the ropes, took me on my first mountain run ever, my first night run ever, and he was actually out there crewing as well. So I had quite a little community and team that was super special. It was really awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Cole, your plane might be leaving you, but that's fine. Shout out your people first.
Shout out to the Lobster and Mobster crew out of Rhode Island. My amazing wife, Ashley, who's like the crew boss, and she's the one that keeps me in check, as you can tell by the cell phone call. My dad, who was a part of my crew, and they were my two main crew people, and Nick, who's this gentleman that I met that ended up pacing me towards the end, the medics, the volunteers, everybody that took a really darn good job and care of me. That wasn't necessarily affiliated through blood and family. I mean, I got my money's worth, especially with the aid stations and the medic help and all that stuff. So thank you all. Thank you, Air Vipa. And thank you to all the Beast Coasters out there for believing in me and watching and supporting. And, all of that helped us, all of us get to the finish line. So thank you.
Yeah. And thanks to the three of you for representing the Beast Coast in style and coming through for us. We were all rooting for you. Appreciate you listening to me. Appreciate the interview today. Ian, come on back in, Ian. Or I'm going to take the whole show because you know I will.
Yeah, it was good to listen. And a couple other things, man, we are going to have to dig into an episode 2 here. I imagine some of you, Lauren, you were a rock star out there. It was fun following the live coverage. We had it playing in our store pretty much all the open hours that it was in here. Cole, to your point, a couple of times where you were just crawling, I was like, dude, is he even still moving forward? And Rhoda, I was cheering for you as you were just kind of what felt like running Cole down there for a little bit. And then Lauren, just seeing the stoke around your finish, and it was just so visceral, the emotion in yours and your crew's faces, and it was just awesome. So hopefully you all appreciated it, and hopefully you passed so many through so many historic places. Hopefully you were able to, just appreciate as you went by just how quirky Jerome is as a place, and just how cool. Hopefully, and Sedona, that's such beautiful place and trails in Sedona. So hopefully you were able to appreciate those things going through as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Right on. Well, hopefully, I imagine other people were reaching out to you for info, Lauren. Hopefully, you're going to get some cool interview slots coming up, and it'd be cool to listen to more of the digestion of it all. And hopefully, you all recover. I know your bodies are probably still eating themselves and a little confused.
I saw, Rhoda, are you signed up for Massachusetts this weekend?
Yeah. Yep, Saturday.
That is BeastCoast at its finest. Are you going to toe the line? Is that the plan?
That's the plan. Yep. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good, so gonna give it a shot.
That's fantastic.
Oh man, I love it. You're a hero.
A lot of heroes. All right. Well, thanks for giving us a bit of your time all tonight, and then Rhoda, maybe we're going to have you on back next week with more McDonald's in your gut, and And I guess if you're running 250 miles last week and 100 mile this weekend, really you don't have
to do a cool down, right?
That's a boss mileage right there.
Yeah.
That's my
just sleeping and eating. That's all I got to do this week.
There's your new slogan for the Rhoda Smoker line of East Coast apparel. Cool. That's awesome. All right. Well, hopefully we can connect with you all going forward. And thanks again for giving us some of your time here tonight.
Absolutely.
You.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks all. And Grayce, thanks so much. All right. So let's see. We are going to move into an odd concept of when the 100-miler, the 100-mile trail races weren't just like the short distance event of the night. So Ryan and Jess on with us to chat on Hellbender a little bit. Hellbender is one that just hopefully is pulled off by the fact that it's put on by Aaron Saft, right? That he's just has the background that he does, the knowledge that he does, the mileage that he has. I imagine really makes a difference in the event. It was an actual beautiful course that he has put together. The branding stellar, like the details were good. And Ryan and Jess, this was both of your first Hellbenders?
This was my second.
It's your second. Okay. And Jess, your first round? Yeah. And was this, I can't remember what happened in COVID. Was this the second running of Hellbender, or is this the third?
This was the third.
Fourth?
I think third. I think they ran it in 2018 for the first time. And then I heard about it and did it in 2019, and then it's been canceled every year since then. So they skipped 2 years.
And the draw. So this is a pretty focal event. Jess, what drew you to Hellbender?
I mean, I just love like the the views, and even though it's not exactly a big loop, but it does take a lot of different trails that goes all the way up to Mount Mitchell. And just when you see the pictures, they're just incredibly beautiful, and it looks incredible. And I also this year they were really pushing to try to get equal female participation, which I mean I really appreciated, even though I signed up the first day, but I really appreciated all that they tried to do to make it an inclusive event and comfortable for women as well. So that was really nice to see.
And that was calculated into the registration process, right? Like they were having like 65 slots for men and 65 slots for women, and like that was which I mean I'm not a mother, but I do have other running friends that are mothers, and it does take a lot of time for them to figure out childcare and that kind of a thing to get that sort of commitment to train for and go to 100 miler. So I know that they kind of appreciate that kind of thing. So really nice. And then Ryan, I think I caught in some of your photos of the event, at least on Facebook. So Jess just mentioned like the views and the draw and just how spectacular it was, but then the weather, you guys were pretty socked in, right? Like what were the conditions?
Yeah, we had 3 different thunderstorms just in the first 50 miles. The first of those started at 2:30 in the morning on race morning. So I don't think any of us got a good night of sleep because at least those of us that were sleeping in camp under a tin roof, we were all pretty much awake from 2:30 onward. And we started at the tail end of that thunderstorm.
Even in a house, it was quite loud and distracting.
I had earplugs in anticipation of other people snoring, and the thunder woke me up through the earplugs.
Yeah.
And so and I guess it's often a crappy night's sleep right before races or whatever. But
this was particularly crappy.
Particularly crappy, and that adds to the. I mean, there's so much nervous anticipation going into such a burly effort. That, I mean, just to sit there in those wee hours and just listening to the conditions and just making it all the worse. It's just like, man, like I imagine there's some whatever kind of second guessing or whatever going on there. So,
I was wondering how bad of a thunderstorm it would take for them to postpone the time of the race.
Yeah.
But
Ryan and I saw each other at one of the aid stations, and you had spoken to your wife and you had said like, oh, the next round of storms is going to come in around 4. And I knew we were going to be hitting Mount Mitchell and the Crest Trail at that point. And the entire time, like the sun was coming out, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, like if I get stopped at the top of that aid station, like I don't know how I'm going to, because they said that they could hold people back, but I don't know that it happened.
Not that I heard of.
Yeah. So tell us, and mentioning some people might know Mount Mitchell, and just having been up there, I know on a nice day, Mount Mitchell is a pretty spectacular place to be. Maybe under a thunderstorm, not so much. But tell us a bit about the course and whoever wants to lead in there. So for those that aren't familiar with Hellbender, give us a kind of the overall or some of the nitty gritty, however that goes.
You want to go ahead, Jess?
Let's go. How about Ryan? You've froze a second. Jess, hopefully it'll unfreeze here in a second. So Ryan, with you having 2 runnings and under your belt, tell us a bit about the Hellbender course, and then maybe if Jess unfreezes.
Sure.
At least you're frozen in a decent. There you are. So, at least you're frozen in a decent spot. It's not like you were. In any case, Ryan, you've run it twice. Tell us a little bit about the course, and maybe Jess, you can weigh in on if that's kind of what you were expecting, or if it kind of met what you were expecting, I guess.
So it's all in the Black Mountains. It's sort of a lollipop with, can you see my finger? A lollipop with sort of a figure 8 at the top of it. So you start and finish on the same 25 mile section of trail. And the high point of the course is Mount Mitchell, which is the high point of the East Coast at just under 6,700 feet. So it's pretty high up there. And then the valleys are just below 2,000 feet. So you get a good 4,000 foot difference between the low points and the high points. And that's what really drew me to this course, because it's got the elevation profile of, Colorado or West Coast race, but all the greenery of the East Coast, and you can also drive to it from where we are. So you're basically just doing a series of 3,000 to 4,000 foot climbs, hitting these ridges. Sometimes you're staying along the ridge. In the case of the climb up Mount Mitchell, we did Mitchell, and then we did a bunch of other 6,000 foot peaks in rapid succession after that, which is unfortunately where a lot of people got stuck in some horrific thunderstorms.
Yeah.
So the first half of the course is steeper and has more single track, and the second half they put in a lot of fire road to be merciful to us.
Yeah.
And then, Jess, were you aware of some of those specs going in, and how'd you find the course as you were going through it?
Yeah, in training, I was thinking about, that's something that we don't necessarily have in New York, New Jersey, that we're kind of used to lots of 1,000, maybe 1,500 foot climbs, but I knew that these were going to be several of the 3,000 foot. So I was, trying to prepare for that, doing these really long, even just like road climbs and stuff like that, just to practice climbing for hours on end. And that was really what you had to be able to do, was just, kind of put your head down and get up those climbs. And yeah, I was really fortunate in that when I got to the summit of Mitchell, it was socked in and there was an aid station there. And just as I was leaving the aid station along the crest, which is probably the most beautiful part of the course, just the skies opened up. It was completely blue sky, beautiful. And then as I'm getting down the crest, in each view, the sky's getting a little darker, and then you're hearing the thunder, and it just was, you feel like you're racing against time. But that's the adventure of it, right? Like, is you're just really in those exposed mountains that are really incredible, and you're going to the most remote part of that course right out, after Mitchell. So what an adventure.
And it's high enough that hopefully it was hopefully still draining pretty well. I mean, it's not like you were in the lowlands where it's just pooling. So hopefully the trails were kind of shedding water, or not so much. Not so much.
Hit and miss. And miss. Coming down off the crest is where I got stuck in that second thunderstorm. And that trail, I think, is rocky enough that you're not getting pools of, well, there were some pools of water. I'll take that back. But it wasn't terrible. But
I think the first thunderstorm was, like, for me, a muddier descent. So it just turned into a slip and slide kind of event.
Yeah, there was a lot of use of the poles on those downhills for me.
And that design is pretty solid in terms of just how they laid it out with more technical stuff, and then front loaded, and then more runnable back. I mean, that end up kind of going or flowing like that. I imagine you were pretty appreciative in the back end, or was that good course design? Or was everybody so beat up at that point that it was just like, I don't know, it all runs together?
It worked out well enough for me the last time I ran it, not so much this time. If you have the legs for it, there's a lot of runnable terrain in the back half of this race, but I did not have the legs for it.
Mm-hmm.
I so the overnight and there's like the Buncombe Horse Trail. I saw someone was just mentioning that is, I guess it just kind of goes down and then you kind of go back up like along a ridge, I guess, but it was so windy and like these high howling winds that made it, even though it should have been more runnable, like it just felt impossibly slow. And it was night, so you just felt like you were just moving really slow. And I didn't feel like I got my legs under me until the sun rose again. And there's like a really nice kind of just fire road descent into one of the aid stations. And it wasn't until that point that I'm like, okay, I think I can finish this. But, in the overnights, you're like, oh, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. Even the aid station was under this tarp that, it looked like a tent. We were inside they were really, someone's saying 70-mile-per-hour winds. Yeah, it felt like it. I don't know if it was or not. That made it that part made it challenging. But once the sun rose, I did feel I was able to a little bit.
You guys are both probably more experienced than I am in terms of 100-milers, but it seems like that's one of the biggest suggestions or encouragement that I can always give to people in hundreds is just make it to sunrise, just because things change if you can just make it to sunrise. And so it's pretty wild how that works. And Ryan, the fact that you went back for round 2 is a testament to enjoy the course, enjoy the event. Jess, would you go back for round 2? Was it? I know
Yeah,
some people
you
are
know,
like, I do a course once and I kind of move on, or I won't double up on a race. But do you want to see it under better conditions, or was it kind of a, I don't know, let's take away feeling?
I know. I think I would. I actually would like to just spend more time in the area. I'm friends with someone who's spending a week out there. It's just like there's so many amazing trails in that area, and even though you're on 100 miles of them, I mean, there's so much more to explore too. So I think, yeah, it would be nice to be able to see it again. And exactly, like I do feel like I maybe under better conditions could have run a little bit faster, but it's so hard to tell because it is so you know, conditions dependent, I think. But I might go back. Yeah, it's so beautiful and really well supported.
And then Ryan, split decision for you, where you had a fairly cleaner running, and then this one the wheels fell off a little bit. So now you got to go back and tip the odds back in the good.
I kind of feel like I got both ends of the spectrum in the 2 times that I did this race. I would want to go back and do the first 50 miles and then call it quits, because that's pretty much what I wanted to do this year. The first 50 is the fun part, and then the second 50 is mud and fire roads.
Okay. Well, all right. So I can see that being a split decision too. Earlier, I guess just a few minutes ago, where I said, is that a pretty good course design where you get more runnable at the back end? I'm going to guess if you're getting more of the beauty and the trails and what you're going for in that front end, then I don't know. Yeah, maybe you just need a 50-mile version then.
Honestly, I felt like the last 25 miles felt completely new to me because we were completely in the fog in the beginning. At least, Ryan, you've seen it before, but I hadn't. So I kept like stopping and waiting for someone like, am I on the right section? Because you're just so bleary-eyed and it looked so different. You know, all the downhills you're now going up and you're like, I don't remember going downhill for this long. And it just seems like, but I don't know. That was new to me anyway, but.
And so what do you guys got coming up? So Rhoda Smoker in the last segment there is following up Cocodona with Mason-Dixon this weekend. Are you guys towing the line at, you know, Highlands for both? And I know, Jess, I can probably fill that gap with aid station support if you want to just jump in the 100K. And Brian, you've been known to do stupider things. So what do you both have coming up?
I don't think I'll be quite that stupid, but I have Manitou's Revenge coming up in 6 weeks or so. And then Fat Dog is my other 100-miler for the year.
And you have a pretty burly year. I did check out your lineup earlier, I think when you first posted it, and I revisited it this week. You got some beautiful events. I mean, Fat Dog's supposed to be spectacular.
Some people would call it ambitious.
Yes. And then, Jess, what do you got on deck?
I think I'm just doing run ventures for the summer, but I'll do no business this fall. So,
cool.
That's in October. So, yeah.
Right on. Well, congrats to both of you for getting through a pretty burly day out there. Thanks for weighing in on it with us here this episode, and thanks for being patient while we ran a little bit long there.
Yeah.
All right. So Jess, I will see you this weekend, and then Ryan, I'm sure I'll cross paths with you at some point too.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you for having us.
Totally.
Hey.
All right. See ya. All right. Moving on to Ryan.
Hello, what's up?
Thanks for your patience too. So,
of course.
So was it? Did you feel like this past weekend at the Sasquad Ventures Big Bear Squatch that you looked more like a squatch than anybody else in the field, and that's probably why you got the win?
It definitely helps, right?
Mm-hmm.
It certainly helps.
Yeah, that's
sure,
fantastic.
Sure, shaved off a few seconds.
So what, tell us about Big Bear Squatch and what, I think this was the inaugural running, right, for this round? And
yeah, I guess the first one, Kim Levinsky created the route. Yes, through Sassquad Trail Runners, pretty sweet route. It goes, it starts in Anthony Wayne, that parking area, goes up West Mountain to the Timp, and then routes some trails in and around. And it's a great mix of technical terrain, runnable terrain, and yeah, it was awesome.
And the distance, I'm spacing in the moment. What was the distance of it?
It's a marathon. It's 6,000 feet of vert, I guess, but my watch was a little under both of that. Like 25 miles and like 5,000 feet.
And this is bringing in a little bit. Did you run the North Face Bear Mountain stuff when it was running?
I did not. That was before I started doing the trip. I did the 5K there actually.
Okay.
But
And so Kim is weaving back in some of the trails. It's kind of a new route, right? It's not just hashing back out the North Face. The North Face, I feel like, started fairly rugged first year or two, and then they softened it, I think, to bring in more of the masses.
mhm.
I think Kim, with so much experience in that area, was dialing in some more of the pretty spectacular trail networks that weren't necessarily on that same course.
Yeah, I ran the course with a few guys that have done the marathon, and I heard the other course is a lot easier.
Yeah.
So, but I haven't ran that course, honestly, and I'm not sure what that looks like. The
Yeah.
North Face. Yeah.
And was this your first Sasquatch event, or have you done some others?
Yeah, this was my first Sasquatch event.
And so, if you were, and you got some of the crummy weather that was on the East Coast this weekend as well. You guys got pretty wet too, right?
Yeah. It rained pretty hard the day before, and up until we started, really. And honestly, the first mile, it kind of just disappeared. Maybe like a little drizzle here and there. Up until I finished, maybe like 6 hours in, I think it started to rain again, and then some sleet and hail after that. So some of the other runners got into that.
Caught in that.
But yeah, the trails were a muddy mess, and yeah, the rocks were slick.
And do you feel like, since it's a Sasquatch and every event is a trail party with their logo, I mean, do you think that that inhibited the disco ball party atmosphere afterward, or do you feel like there's still some rocking out going on there with the trail party?
Yeah, I mean, everyone was chilling, having a good time. It looked like with smiles on their face, even though the weather was definitely not in everybody's favor. But I think we all made a good time out of it. And
it was a good turnout, right? Was there a couple hundred entrants?
Yeah, I think there was just under a couple hundred. There was definitely over 100 in the half marathon, and I think there was like 40 entrants in the marathon.
Okay. Just watching all of you go off in the post-race clip, it looked like a solid turnout for bringing it back, and hopefully that'll continue to grow really well based on the history of events there. Cool. And then what else you got on deck? Have you done a bunch of trail running prior, and this is just your first Sasquatch event? Are you newer into the trail scene?
Like I kind of started during COVID and ran my first ultra in 2020. Nice. But yeah, I like to do the bigger races. This was just like, preseason. I thought, why not? It's where I train, So, but I did the SRT 70 last year, and I'm hoping to do some version of Kim Levinsky's like Hudson Highlands 100 route.
Yeah, cool.
Just like, for fun. Maybe FKT, we'll see.
Right on. Yeah, that's a pretty burly and spectacular route. You might as well just come join us for Hudson or the Highlands Trail Fest this weekend and get your fair chunk of a share in there.
All right.
But that is a pretty spectacular route that you put together.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Right on. Well, congrats. And so this was the first event, so you technically got the course record out there at the moment. Is that how that goes?
I guess so, yeah.
It's outstanding. So
yeah,
nice work on your first course record in addition to win.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Well, cool. Well, thanks for coming on for a little bit with us here this evening, and it would be great to catch up with you at another point and just kind of see where it all goes for you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. All right. Thanks, Brian.
Yep. See you later.
Yeah. All right, Ryan. Thanks for your patience, man.
No worries at all.
Thanks. Sorry, we got a little bit back here. And for all those still tuning in, thanks. Well, this will be our last event focus of this episode or this round, and focusing on the Greenbelt 50K. And Ryan, tell us a little bit about the Greenbelt. Has this been a long time running? I know I see the running club logo that puts it on. Has it been going for a while?
Yeah. So GLRC has had this event for probably, I'd say, over a decade now. But like the last couple of years, it's gotten a little more traction. People have been coming from upstate and Connecticut to come and race, which is really cool. But yeah, it was as everyone has been kind of saying that had races on the East Coast this weekend, like that Saturday morning, it was just brutal with the rain and wind and everything, and even like protected by the trees. Like the rain was just coming down and made for some pretty sloppy conditions overall.
And tell us a bit about the grade. Is this like a rail trail grade? Tell us about the Greenbelt Trail.
So there's two Greenbelt trails on Long Island. There's the Nassau one, which this was on the northern part of it, and like the first 3 or 4 miles are pretty runnable, and you could get some quick miles in there. But once you get north of Stillwell Woods in Syosset, you hit like the Cold Spring Harbor section, which is definitely more technical, rooty. And then once the rain really picked up, you kind of had some rivers running through parts of the course that made it a little more tough to go up and down and kind of cut some time off.
So this is a good mix. So you've got, I mean, when it's not under crazy conditions, so there's some single track in there, a double track, or what's the?
I would say a majority of it is single track. Luckily, because the weather was bad, we didn't have a lot of walkers on the northern section by Cold Spring Harbor. You do have like a lot of like hikers and people that go out because it's one of the nicer parts and trails in the area. But yeah, I would say single track for most of it.
Nice resource. And this was a point-to-point format?
So
out and back?
There was the 50K, which I did, and then there was the 25K. The 50K was point to point to point to point.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was 2 out and backs, and then the 25K, which started an hour later, was just out and back.
Okay. And does it run pretty smooth out there? I mean, there's enough room for passing with the out and backs, or it's not really an issue?
Yeah, for the most part, I would say. But like we got a little lucky with the 50K. We had probably about an hour 10 minutes where we didn't have rain in the beginning, since it was an early start. But once that rain came down, like the single track, like if the middle section that everyone was running on became very, very, very muddy and sloppy, and it became a little tough to pass. And there were some sections you had to kind of run behind people for a few seconds before you could get around and everything.
Okay. And how big is the race? How many people did it roughly?
It was a little light this year with participants. I think there were 40 or 50 finishers on the 50K, and the 25K probably had like 60 or 70.
Okay. And there's a couple of events that use the Greenbelt Trail, right? Or maybe was this the only one that uses that section? Maybe there's some other events that use different sections?
So the Nassau Greenbelt, this is the only event to my knowledge that uses it, but the Suffolk one, they do shore to shore, which I think you had someone on last week that was talking about that race a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, there's two, because I haven't run either of those. I don't think I've run those sections. It kind of blends together in my head, or I can't log it or have associative value. Cool. And what else you got going on? Anything that's coming up on your end?
Yeah, next up is actually your race in Ithaca.
Oh, you doing Cayuga
trails?
Oh, right on. 50K, 50 mile. What are you doing?
50 miler. That was actually my first ultra I did a couple of years back. So I'm looking to set a PR on the course for myself. Yeah.
Right on. Well, thanks for coming back and joining the mix again. And so that was a good training effort in terms of building up. Are you feeling pretty good?
Yeah, I'm the first half of this year I'm kind of doing some of the shorter distances, and as I get on to the longer stuff in the latter half of the year.
Okay. And are you going further than Cayuga? What do you got after that?
Yep. So June 4th is Cayuga, and then on June 20 something I have it's a Friday start. It's in South Dakota.
Oh wow.
But it's a 100-miler, and then I'm on a wait list right now for 100-miler Eastern States in Pennsylvania. And then I'm doing a point-to-point Buffalo to Brooklyn in October, which I'm looking forward to.
You do have a big big year as a whole, but for sure in terms of the mileage, a big back half.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, South Dakota. What took you interest to South Dakota?
I was a grad assistant coach out there, and the last 2 years. So I'm looking to go back, reconnect with some friends that I made, and hopefully shoot for a course record on there. And we'll see. It's such a nice area, so I'm really looking forward to it, especially in the summertime. I've never been out there in the summer.
So That's great.
Cool.
Imagine that'll be fun to go back, and hopefully any of your runners going to come out and cheer or crew or whatever.
Still working on it. I have a buddy out in Phoenix that's going to be flying up, and we'll be hanging out for a few days, and he'll be crewing me, which would be really cool.
Cool. And then Eastern States, how far down on the wait list are you?
I started at 54, and now I'm at 22. So I'm feeling pretty optimistic.
Feeling pretty good about the odds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. And will it be your first Eastern States, or have you done that one?
It'll be my first Eastern States, but I went to school in Mansfield, Pennsylvania, so right by the Grand Canyon. So I'm familiar with some of the trails, but it'll be cool to be able to go around the Grand Canyon and kind of explore some of the more rural parts.
And then following the forgetting the name of the trail, what's the big point to point that you mentioned closing out the
the Empire State Trail.
State Trail. Yeah. And there was I can't remember, was it relay fashion or individuals? What was the initial kind of opening event that they associated with the Empire State Trail? There was something, right? A couple of years ago.
I know they did something with the cyclists doing that.
Okay.
I'm not too familiar if there were runners that have done it. I know a guy here on Long Island did it two summers ago in like 10 or 11 days. So
right on. And so is that the current FKT, so to speak, is around 10 or 11 days, somewhere in there? Is it? Or you haven't really looked into it?
I haven't looked into it, but I would presume that was probably close to that. But I'm looking to hopefully do it in under a week.
And what's the total distance? It's like
555 miles.
555. Cool.
So like three plus marathons a day.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what month are you trying to do it?
It's going to be the third week of October, it looks like.
October. Right on. Well, maybe we can catch up again around that time, or for sure plug it or catch you out there. Well, great job, man. Nice work on Greenbelt, and it would be cool to see you and catch up in person here in a month or so at Cayuga. So thanks for coming back and joining us here again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, dude, right on. All right, and thanks for your patience again, Ryan, and thanks for some of your time tonight.
No worries. See you,
man. See ya. All right, another round of TC Live. Been too busy to see what we've got going on at deck next week rather for the TC Live. Putting on the Highlands Trail Festival this weekend. So hopefully that will go well. Thanks to any who are going to come out and join us, either as entrants or volunteers. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you all tuning in. I'm grateful for the guests that we had on tonight and their time. And for any of you who just take the moment just to, if you appreciate the work that we're doing, like the stations, share it in your own network. And if you're so inclined, hop on as a Patreon supporter. So thank you so much again. And until next week, see you.